And here we are for the inaugural episode of the Doolette. I'm Mac, and here to spin the wheel and figure out what crazy Scooby-Doo adventure we're going to be watching this week is Van. Van, go ahead and spin that Doolette.
Here we go, spinning the Doolette, the immortal wheel to which we owe all this wretched universe. It is Chill Out Scooby-Doo from the yesteryear of 2007.
The 2007 Scooby-Doo movie, Chill Out Scooby-Doo, will be the inaugural episode of the Doolette, a Scooby-Doo podcast.
Mac, have you ever heard of this one before? Because I think I might have, but they have done a lot of snow ones, and they're usually very bad.
Okay, so the fact that it doesn't start with Scooby-Doo and the blank, it's sort of I think it's like the sister movie to Aloha Scooby-Doo, which I know a little bit better. This definitely seems like one I have seen. I'm sort of slowly dawning on me that I may have seen more Scooby-Doo movies than I let on. It's definitely from like the era of Scooby-Doo movies that sort of played on Saturday morning Cartoon Network. And that was the sort of thing that I would watch on a Saturday morning if I didn't have anything better to do, which I often did not.
Yeah, those balmy Michigan days where the potentials stretch on forever, and you're like, I'm just going to watch some stupid cartoons this morning.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, I haven't seen this one yet.
Mm-hmm. And it, like, might be better than all those other ones I saw that were just okay to not very good.
Yeah, I'm sort of chasing after that Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island high.
Yeah, that initial buzz, they gave you that first hit for free, and now you're back for more.
Yeah, like, it used to be that you could only watch it on VHS, then it was straight to TV, and you're like, well, this must be better, but it's probably likely not.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, from my memory, and I would love to be proved wrong, but it seems like a very slow downward descent from the initial high of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
I have heard rumors that there is a interesting uptick that makes this sort of journey worth it. So there's a couple surprises I've been told in sort of the Scooby-Doo canon. So I'm kind of excited for that.
By your secret ascended Scooby-Doo masters?
That's right.
With their elevative knowledge of the Dooniverse.
Yeah, I can't really reveal the specifics of who these people are, but they did live in caves for periods of time.
And on that note, let's get to the show.
Buddy, how did we ever wind up on this frozen freak fest?
Chill out and melt down with Scooby-Doo and Shaggy in their all-new original movie.
Monster!
Featuring...
Zoinks! It's the abominable snowman!
And a killer menu challenge. So grab a snowboard and shred some snow. For one epic adventure.
Looks like we've got a mystery on our hands.
Look for Chill Out Scooby-Doo, the all-new original movie, soon on DVD.
All right, well, we just got back from watching Chill Out Scooby-Doo, our first randomly decided Scooby-Doo movie on the Doolette. Van, how are you feeling after watching that movie?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, it was thoroughly mediocre,
okay,
but it wasn't bad. It was just like milquetoast, dead center, Scooby-Doo. This is like the absolute median of Scooby-Doo quality.
I think it's like right in that comfortable middle ground for Scooby-Doo. I think if every movie is at that level, I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to be a little disappointed, but I know it's not. But just in general, I think it's a comfortable level of quality.
Yeah, it's comfortably numb,
Yeah.
There's not too many highs, not too many lows, which I think we're going to be nostalgic for this type of thing once we start getting into the WWE and Kiss crossovers, which not excited for.
John Cena! Whoa!
I didn't know WWE superstars were so hot. Strong.
But if the general quality is about this level, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, I've got a feeling, just in general, I'd say just in broad strokes about the film, it seems like it's definitely one that doesn't take itself too seriously, but it does take the concept, it does respect the concept in a way. Like, it doesn't completely ignore, like...
There's no blatant hatred and disregard for Scooby-Doo as a beloved franchise.
Well, yeah, it's not like... they're not phoning it in as much as they're just sort of making sort of interesting decisions that may or may not work too well in the end.
Well, what decisions are those? Let's get into it and
All right.
find out.
Let's get into the recap then. It opens up sort of in the middle of the action where we're sort of established. Two of the characters will sort of learn their names later, but there's a professor character named Professor Jeffries and a Sherpa whose name is Pemba Sherpa is his last name. So I don't actually know how... like, accurate that is, that Sherpa is a last name.
Yeah, with the naming conventions.
Yeah, but they're there. So Pemba has led the professor out to this sort of, like, known signpost, at least to Pemba, sort of forecasting the way to, I guess, the mythical Shangri-La.
The mysterious kingdom, which may or may not be real.
That's right.
We'll find out.
So after Pemba has brought the professor all the way out here on top of Mount Everest, which I guess is an important detail that I think I didn't mention on the initial description.
Yeah, this does take place in Mount Everest.
Yeah, atop Mount Everest in the general in Tibet.
The snowy peaks of the Himalayas.
That's exactly right. So after they've sort of mountain climbed all the way out here, and Pemba says, yes, I know exactly where this thing is. I'll take you there. He then says, you know what? I dare not go any further than this, though. And so they sort of have a bit of a falling out. There's this weird section where, like, the professor says, oh, this is exactly as my manuscript. He pulls out like a little scroll and then like rips the scroll and sort of just throws it away.
Yeah, they come to like a foreboding obelisk type thing, and the runes on the scroll match exactly. And they got a pretty good laugh out of me when the professor's like, this is it, we found it. Tears the scroll in half.
Yeah.
Don't need this anymore. Yeet.
And then both of them leave each other for dead. Which is important because, like, later on they're kind of just buddy. So it's sort of the importance of this particular scene is sort of lost on me later. But they do run into Pemba does after they get separated.
The Abominable Snowman.
Yeah, it's our villain for the piece, the Abominable Snowman.
Oh, I do think it's important to mention though that Pemba's the one who sees the snowman. The professor's off in the snow somewhere, making it. Is he the snowman? Is he not the snowman? We don't know. We don't know, man.
Then I'll go alone.
Wait! Professor!
You've seen the creature.
And then we cut to Paris, and we've got Daphne, Velma, and Fred just kind of chilling at a cafe in Paris.
The classic triune when Scoob and Shag are off on their gluttonous course to destruction.
Yeah, Daphne's wearing some hot fashion. Velma's reading a newspaper called L'Intellectual.
L'Intellectual.
Fred's messing around with his, like, super-duper GPS cell phone. And then they're like, oh, I wonder when Scooby and Shaggy are going to be here.
Well, there's a great bit where Daphne's like, they say, like, Paris is the city of lovers. And Fred's like, oh, I'm in love with my brand new cell phone.
Yeah.
Got all those hot apps, 2007 apps. Do they have apps in 2007?
I think it was on the edge of, like, app culture.
Mm-hmm. Just on the very edge. So Fred was an innovator, you would say.
Definitely an innovator.
Mm-hmm. Hands down.
It's got high-def video, an MP3 player, even satellite GPS. I'm like totally geeking.
Then we cut from there. They're like, I wonder where Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are. And then they're on an airplane, and this is sort of where obviously this is first seen with Scooby and Shaggy, and Shaggy in this movie is very much ready to comment on any situation with some sort of pun or otherwise like humorous take on the subject.
Oh yeah, it almost got like grading at points. Like, Shaggy, you're about to die. Quit cracking jokes here and like run.
I'm glad we finally flew an all-you-can-eat airline. Like, that's not even a joke, but you're saying it like a joke, Shaggy.
Yeah.
You really just can't engage with people.
It's his defense mechanism, to keep the world out. He self-medicates his depression with food, and his anxiety he treats by just erecting a wall, a stream of puns to shield him from the cruel reach of fate.
Food, my favorite hobby.
So this is where we get to sort of the inciting incident, at least for our heroes. It turns out that Scooby and Shaggy have been tricked onto this supposed all-you-can-eat airline.
Instead of the typical everyday all-you-can-eat airline, which we're also familiar with.
Yeah, so they're actually on like basically a cargo plane with they're the only two seats, and then we have this character.
C'est mad, franchement. Alphonse Lafleur.
I am Alphonse Lafleur, the world's greatest hunter.
It's a brilliant performance, and it's a little shifty. He's a very shifty character, shape-shifty, you could say, because he's voiced by everyone's favorite Odo.
Odo from Deep Space Nine, the shapeshifter from Deep Space Nine, Security Chief Odo, is also Alphonse Lafleur.
Alphonse Lafleur, the world's greatest hunter.
Named actor René Auberjonois.
René Auberjonois.
I guess his most notable performance in the animation community prior to this would have been the chef in The Little Mermaid.
Who just has that song about how much he loves, like, killing and cooking sea creatures. And he's like a bad guy, but the guy does not know that they talk and sing, so you really can't blame him that much.
But he does really want to kill Sebastian the Crab.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, I'm sure he scared a lot of people.
Now I'll stuff you with bread. It don't hurt, cause you're dead. And you're certainly lucky you are. Cause it's gonna be a hot in magic silver pot to the new poisson au revoir.
So René Auberjonois' character, Alphonse
Lafleur.
He has sort of deduced. My guess is that this is a recurring character that he's shown up before. I don't know for sure, and he could just be unique to this particular adventure. But it seems like he does have at least some prior history with Scooby and Shaggy, because he knows that Scooby and Shaggy always seem to attract monsters.
Yeah, that's one of the things I liked about the approach. Yeah. Like, Scooby and Shaggy just in this world, like, of course they attract monsters, because that's just how it works. Like, the odds of, like, Mystery Inc. just going on a vacation, as they do in all these movies, and then just accidentally running into monsters is just impossible. It's like billions to one. And so I like how they're really exploring, like, wait a minute, these freaks just attract freakiness.
Yeah, and so Alphonse has like sort of deduced this and sort of been like a careful observer of the Scooby-Doo and Shaggy sort of monster attractive power.
Monster magnet.
So he has tricked them into coming to the Himalayas, knowing that the monster that lives in the Himalayas will come out. And, you know, to his credit, that is 100% true.
How do you catch a monster that may not even exist? With a bait no monster can resist.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was really, like, the most competent character in the game, and his only problem was that, he was the only one not playing by, like, cartoon character rules, because we'll see later, he gets super competent and almost gets the Yeti if Scooby and Shaggy hadn't goobered it all up for him by being Scooby and Shaggy.
Yeah, so then they do an airdrop out of the cargo plane. They both Alphonse and Scooby and Shaggy. We get our one of 4 or 5 different chase scenes in the film. Which I think what the difference between a regular episode of Scooby-Doo and a movie version of Scooby-Doo, at least sort of in the margins, is how many chase scenes can we fit in this bad boy?
Oh, and they can fit in a lot.
Yeah, so that's kind of the first half of one. I mean, I sort of delineate the difference between a music montage chase sequence and just a regular chase sequence.
Well, I'd say a regular chase sequence in a movie, at least, it does not have any lyrics, but they can usually get some semi-topical upbeat song for, like, the longer chase sequences.
Sure.
You know, like, later on, there's, like, they gotta pull a pin out of, like, a mining thing. It's like, and the music's like, you gotta pull the pin.
On track to win, but you pull the pin, and it really blows your tie.
Oh, and it's around this time that sort of Scooby and Shaggy sort of relay to the gang in Paris that they've sort of been shanghaied to Tibet.
Yeah, well, he doesn't say Tibet because he doesn't quite know at the time, but, like, Shaggy and Scooby are dangling from a parachute in a box above a cliff about to die, and it's actually quite harrowing. They call Fred, and he's like, zoinks, Freddy, we're not gonna make this one! And then his reception dies.
Yeah.
And then, luckily, I guess Fred has a LoJack on him, because he's able to see that he's in the Himalayas through the magic of GPS technology.
He's using that fancy cell phone that was set up, like, mere minutes before.
Mm-hmm. That's what we call foreshadowing.
It's definitely foreshadowing. One of the things I sort of noticed at this point in the scene is that they took the van to Paris.
Oh yeah. They have Daphne, Velma, and Fred are as always accompanied by the Mystery Machine, which they flew all the way to Paris somehow on their hippie bohemian mystery solvers budget.
And my assumption is that at some point they made a lot of money. I think this is sort of an extension of like the What's New Scooby-Doo, because I think that was sort of the gimmick in What's New Scooby-Doo. They went to not just anywhere in the United States, but like the whole world. Mm-hmm. So it's just sort of like established at this point that they can just sort of fly wherever they want for next to no financial burden.
I also remember somewhere reading that Shaggy is actually independently wealthy. Like, he's Norville Rogers III or something. And has a vast fortune. So, really, I think Shaggy's just bankrolling all this. And that's why, like, he's just so chill about food because he knows he can order a limitless amount, you know. That's like how he developed his gluttony. You know, I bet his rich parents were off and distant, couldn't talk to anyone. So he erected a wall of food and puns to keep the cruel world out.
It makes a lot of sense now that you say it.
Because I mean, you know, everyone acts like that. Everyone acts like Shaggy is the incompetent one, and he is incompetent. But why would everyone else be hanging around him if he was so incompetent? You know,
he must be bankrolling everybody. I mean, you think that, like, I think in like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, Daphne's the one established to be like incredibly wealthy. But it sort of makes more sense that Shaggy's the one that's sort of keeping them all, you know, above water, financially speaking.
Yeah, he's been like cooking the books for years. Like, oh, Zoinks, gang, we made all this money from like stopping a monster, but that's absurd. You don't make money in the monster business.
Nobody does. Yeah, I've never once seen them like put an invoice in anybody's hands for their services they provide.
Their goods and services. He's got them all fooled, even Velma. Master manipulator, Norville Rogers.
Yeah, so after that cell phone call, the crew, the gang, as it were, they like all hop in the van, and I'm like, are they going to drive to the Himalayas? And that's sort of like set up for later. Because they do eventually pay off the fact they did drive all the way from Paris to the Himalayas. Because there's a scene where they're like driving through Mongolia.
I don't think they drove. I think they flew and used the Mystery Machine to get it, you know, over there.
But Mongolia is nowhere near the Himalayas. Like just driving from Mongolia to the Himalayas would take at least minimum 3 days. And I think, at least if I've kind of plotted out the timeline of the film, Scooby and Shaggy land on day one. They do some stuff, and then by the time halfway through the movie, when the rest of the gang shows up, having been driven and taken various different methods to arrive to the crew, it's only the day after.
Yeah. Just the timeline gets weird in this. A cartoon not having a solid understanding of travel times and airfare. Who'd have thunk it?
Admit it, Freddy. We're lost.
We're not lost. We're just taking a shortcut.
Across Mongolia?
Just keep an eye out for road signs to Timbuktu.
Velma and Daphne and Fred are just totally off screen for a good portion. One of the things that's interesting is just how good, like, a hook this is. I kind of didn't even want, like, the opening stuff with the scientist and the Sherpa.
Yeah.
I just want, like, Fred and Velma and Daphne to be chilling in Paris, and you're like, oh, cool, is it a little Parisian adventure? Are they going to pan over and show my friends Scooby-Doo and Shaggy Rogers eating a comically large pile of food? Nope, because Fred gets a call that has the audio of what appears to be the death of their friend and his dog. That is a brilliant hook.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It's pretty good, and the only reason why you'd know it would be off because the movie's called Chill Out Scooby-Doo, and I don't think Paris is that cold.
Well, I thought it was going to be a metaphor. I wasn't talking about the cold. There wasn't a pun in there. It was just like, Scooby-Doo, you are too high-strung. You know, he's encountered so many monsters.
Yeah.
He has severe dog PTSD. It's like, Scooby-Doo, we're your friends. We're here to help you. You just need to chill out, man. Bro, get away from me. I can't do a Scooby impression.
No, you really can't.
One of us needs to learn.
It's not, but it didn't stop you from trying, and that's what I love about you.
Aww.
Well, that's what they're doing about for 45 minutes of the film, driving from Paris to the Himalayas. And
let's call that group Frelma.
Frelma.
Yeah, just all their
Where's
names
the
combined together. Frowny.
Oh, Frelny. Okay.
There we go. Team Frowny.
Okay. So I've been writing in my notes as the 3. Which isn't funny to anybody but myself, but
Yeah, anyone who hasn't played 13th Age, it's not really amusing.
yeah. So then Scooby and Shaggy, they sort of slip and slide down the mountain and end up in this sort of monastery village situation where we sort of are reintroduced to the characters we saw at the beginning of the film. We have Pemba, Sherpa, Professor Jeffries. They're sort of standing around saying like, yeah, no biggie that we kind of left each other for death. It's water under the bridge, folks.
These things happen, and they're just totally willing to forgive each other. Oh, by the way, yeah, you left me to die in the Himalayas.
Yeah, no, like one guy's like, I'm sorry I cut you loose and I cut the line and you almost died by falling off the mountain. That's okay. It's really my fault for taking you that far. I shouldn't have in the first place.
I'm very sorry, Pemba. I should never have cut that rope. Without you, I quickly became lost. I barely made it back here alive.
It is my own fault, Professor. I should not have taken you as far as the Forbidden Lands.
And when we get to the monastery, it's almost like totally deserted because Pemba Sherpa is running around going like, oh, by the way, guys, I woke up the Yeti. My fault. I took a foreigner, a forbidden man, past the Yeti line, and now he's back and he wants vengeance. Please flee the city.
Yeah, so everybody's like leaving the village, city, temple situation. The only people left are Pemba and the professor, Pemba's sister Minga, and the llama character who never gets a name.
Yeah, I think they just call him like the most high and holy llama.
Exactly.
And he's voiced excellently by James Hong, everyone's favorite.
Oh, he's voiced by James Hong?
Yeah, James Hong.
Okay.
Like Kung Fu Panda and a bunch of other stuff. Anytime they need like a spooky oriental sounding guy, they get James Hong.
That makes sense.
The other guy though, I did like his voice. Pemba Sherpa was voiced by the guy who also voiced Jackie Chan on Jackie Chan Adventures.
This is cartoon voices you recognize. Central voice casting, I would probably say. We've got... So Minga is Pemba's sister. She's really into American radio.
Well, not just American radio.
No.
The only radio station run by an American, and also the only radio station maybe up at that altitude in the Himalayas.
Yeah, the only radio reception there is.
Yeah, there's just a weather station that she mentions, and she has a huge crush on, was it like
Chillman?
Del Chillman.
Surprisingly, I mean, you think, oh wow, really on the nose, a name Chillman in the Himalayas, but for somehow this character is not originally from this movie.
Which Scooby-Doo movie did it come from?
But it's a Loch Ness Monster movie from the same sort of era.
The golden era.
I wouldn't say that, but from that same sort of mid-2000s movie era where they would go to different countries for the adventures. And I remembered that mostly because he mentions when we run into him later that he was looking for Nessie.
Yeah, okay. Well, I never saw that one.
Got it.
I just assumed he was just some wacky, crazy DJ with a name that was a bit too on the nose.
I know, it's surprisingly not, which is sort of a surprising amount of restraint for this film. So, yeah, you run into the llama. He's mystical. He walks without touching the ground sort of maneuvers. Has a lot of ominous foreboding. Doesn't seem to like the professor character very much. And then Scooby and Shaggy sort of just fall from the sky into the middle of the village.
Yeah, they just fall from the sky and into the village, and then James Hong is like, oh, you fell from the sky? And then he flies down and hands them tea, which they are repulsed by. I think it's the first food I have seen Shaggy and Scooby reject, and that's apparently because it's yak butter tea.
Yeah, and that's where we sort of start digging into a lot of the yak-centric humor in this film. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of different points where people just start mentioning yaks, because the yaks are a thing that is in the Himalayas, so therefore people must mention them a lot.
Yeah, Hanna-Barbera were like, well, we thought we'd do some research, see what it's like, but instead we just looked at a postcard and there was a yak on it.
I think I counted 6 different yak jokes throughout the film.
Ooh, we gotta get a little sound effect for the yak meter anytime it goes off.
Please, excuse my sister, Professor. She is as stubborn as a yak.
I see you do not enjoy our yak butter tea.
Well, I'll say one thing. You can really taste the yak.
What did I tell you, Professor? She is stubborn as a yak. Oh, this mountain is cursed. The yaks are unhappy.
You ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk fast.
They land in there. They sort of discuss Scooby and Shaggy get an update on all the happenings that have been going on in town. They're like, hey, can we borrow your cell phone? They're like, actually, the cell phones don't really work out here, which is surprising that the professor character would sort of go on the journey to the Himalayas and not have like a satellite phone.
Wind up before it stops ringing.
Pemba's like, oh, well, there's that weather station that's also a radio station run by Del Chillman. And, they have a phone there, so I'd be happy to take you. And he's sort of very eager to volunteer to go take Scooby and Shaggy wherever they want to go.
Despite the fact that he's running around like spouting gloom and doom and making his entire village flee down the mountain because he's so scared of the abominable snowman.
Right, but he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm definitely the guy who can take you all the way up the mountain. No problem, don't even worry about it. It's sort of like, why go farther up the mountain to make a phone call? I'm sure there are also phones farther down the mountain as well.
That's a good
But that's never really interrogated any further than the fact that, oh, well, the nearest phone must be farther up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Pemba volunteers to take Scooby and Shaggy up the mountain. Alphonse, who just showed up, is like, oh, I'll go along with you. So he's joining the party as well. And then Professor Jeffries, he's like, I'll go along too. More people, better to go. And they're like, so now they all set out, and Minga also wants to go, but she is turned away by her brother because he says it's too dangerous. So they all start sort of walking up the mountain. We get to a point where they sort of that's where they sort of start litigating with Alphonse, like, hey, wait a second, are you really here to help us, or are you here for some other reason? And he sort of reveals the fact that he's using Scooby and Shaggy as bait to lure out the abominable snowman.
Mm-hmm. He is Alphonse Lefleur, the greatest hunter in the world.
Alphonse Lefleur.
And he's just determined to capture that snowman.
Yeah, so about halfway up the mountain, they decide to rest for the night and sort of set up camp. Which it sort of reinforces the idea that this was probably a bad idea to go just for a phone call, but this is where we're at. So they set up camp.
Alphonse Lefleur
sets up a bunch of traps all around.
A bunch of lasers, which are like completely different than the lasers you see in most movies where they just have to like hit him with that spray so they can see them. These lasers are bright red, glowing, completely visible, very thick. Anybody could see them, but nobody does. They just run straight through them time and time again later on. Like,
yeah.
They would make terrible spies.
Yeah, so basically, Scooby and Shaggy are sort of now aware of the fact that the Yeti, the abominable snowman, which is used interchangeably in this film, is out there, and they're very scared. So they sort of have a little powwow, and they're like, "Oh, we've got it all figured out. We're gonna be safe." And then the Yeti shows up, and it has seemingly got around all the traps very easily. And then we start the first musical montage chase scene of the film.
Yeah. Wasn't there a point earlier where the sister shows up again?
You're right. The sister does show up again, like halfway up this climb before they make camp. The sister shows up
because she wanted to go and meet the Iceman.
Right, Del Chillman.
But it's sort of a dramatic moment. Scooby and Shaggy's first encounter with Le Snowman, as he was called in the newspaper that Velma was reading at the beginning.
Yeah, Le Snowman with an exclamation mark. That was the name of the article in the newspaper.
Yeah, forgot to mention how good that is for the hook. And there's like a line that's basically verbatim. Oh no, Scooby and Shaggy are trapped in the Himalayas with the snowman.
The Himalayas? Home to Mount Everest and the headline-making mystery of the abominable snowman.
Now, hold on. Just because there's a mysterious monster on the loose, it doesn't necessarily mean that Shaggy and Scooby are going to get in trouble. Does it?
We've got to get to Mount Everest. Everybody in the van.
So this is about the halfway point of the film, more or less. We have the chase sequence. Scooby and Shaggy do their like patented dressing up as characters to trick the monster, which, like, you know, if this is going to be a person in a mask, the monster's stupidity at this point where they're like, oh, yes, of course, I'd love to sit down for a fine dining experience. Or, of course, I'd love to get in a prize fight with Scooby in a boxing match, which does happen later, but
you gotta give Scooby and Shaggy credit for just committing to the bit. Like, they'll get the monster distracted for a little bit, and they'll have like 10 seconds lead to go and flee. But no, they'll hang on for like half a minute completing the gag. You know, they'll get the monster distracted to get at like a fake restaurant, and then they'll bring him like ice sandwiches and ice drinks and food made out of ice, and then they'll wait till he gets mad and flips the table to run. It's like, that did not buy you guys any time.
It buys them next to zero time, and you never think, oh, this makes sense. Whoever's behind this mask must have definitely gotten fooled by this.
But it does have like a really fantastic one where the monster is chasing them across some ice. Then suddenly they are ice fishermen. Scooby and Shaggy are just fishing through a hole in the ice. The monster shows up, and Shaggy's like, here, and passes him the fishing rod. The monster's like, oh, okay. And he reels in just a small little fish, and then gets sucked in. The abominable snowman gets sucked in through the hole in the ice, beat up by the fish, and tossed out, and the fish spits on him. And only then do Scooby and Shaggy run away.
Scooby and Shaggy are diligently standing next to the Yeti the whole time until the Yeti realizes the ruse, because that's no regular fish. That's a fighting fish.
But it's like, gotta stick to the bit, Scoob. You can't run away now. Gotta commit to the bit.
So then they basically run away. The whole group gets separated. So really at this point it could be anybody on the crew except for probably LaFleur, because he's sort of seen interacting with the Yeti.
Yeah, you're right. We see LaFleur and Scooby-Doo interact, and LaFleur...
We see a little bit of Pemba, but it's sort of like, I guess it's all Pemba alone. So like there could be a weird thing happening there where it's meant to dissuade. Like he could be in on it. That we don't know that yet.
Yeah. But LaFleur was actually like the most competent character in this movie, because his lasers don't just set off like traps, like, you know, snares and stuff like that. It's like advanced, probably multi-thousands of dollar net cannons.
He's got like this giant like hidden like net that's like counterbalanced, like set like swinging around. It's very elaborate.
Yeah, and of course Scooby and Shaggy set off all the lasers and all the traps at once, which all immediately target LaFleur instead of the snowman.
Exactly. So yeah, then Scooby and Shaggy get picked up by Del Chillman, who's driving a snowmobile machine around the mountain. I don't quite believe that you could drive a snowmobile around the mountain like that, because if you could, why doesn't everybody else? And it's a little it works, I guess, but it sort of deflates the danger of going up the mountain, because we do find later that he can just drive that sort of wherever he wants on the mountain. It's not like just the area that he happens to be in.
Yeah, he can take that like bad boy up anywhere.
Yeah, it really has to do with the fact that the writers are used to having like car chase sequences in the film, and because they believed it would actually stretch credibility if the van was driving around the Himalayas, which honestly would have been better if they just hooked it up with like whatever's on Del Chillman's tractor. If they just like outfitted the van with that, I think I would have liked it a little bit better. But
yeah, you gotta have a sick like trick my car scene. You know, just getting like massive snow tires, like one of those big like train fronts.
Yeah, so Scooby and Shaggy run into Del Chillman. They know each other from the previous film. So they're like, great to see you. You know, he explains his whole backstory of like being like, oh, I got done looking for Nessie, so I thought, oh, I'll take a job in the Himalayas and look for the Yeti. Read the weather report, and in my spare time I'll look for the Yeti, and in my other spare time I'll be a radio DJ. He's slightly aware of somebody being infatuated with his radio DJ escapades.
He doesn't know who, but he got a letter from his #1 fan.
Yeah.
Very adoring.
And Scooby and Shaggy look look at each other like very knowingly, like, I think I know what this means, but they don't go to the trouble of telling him about Minga.
Yeah, and that's good. Keep it chill, guys. Just don't add anybody like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's very cool of them. Very chill.
Man.
At that point, that's when your Daphne, Freddie, Velma, they finally arrive in the Himalayas with their van that has been pulled up by a team of yaks, and we get some good yak back and forth there.
Yak and forth,
yakking back and forth. And they're like, oh, the yak guy's gonna leave because the yaks are scared and all that fun yak humor.
Don't talk back.
So anyway, their van is there in the town, and they sort of start investigating. They notice the tracks that were left by Scooby and Shaggy. They're like, this must be Scooby and Shaggy. There's a lot of fun sort of hand waving of them sort of making deductions, like, where else would they be?
Of course, if there's a monster, they're by the monster.
And why would they go up the mountain? I have no idea either.
Yeah, and they find the Abominable Snowman's prints, and here's first big clue number 1.
That was the first clue, Watson.
They are not very deep prints at all. Huge feet, very shallow prints. In fact, they make a comment that Daphne's prints are actually much deeper in the snow than the monsters. And she's like, hey, are you calling me fat or something?
Yeah, they get some fat jokes in there.
Yeah.
Which is always a real laugh riot.
Completely non-controversial subject for humor.
Exactly. Basically, they make their way up the mountain. I guess it's a lot easier. I guess the discrepancy for their speed is that there was a snowstorm when Scooby and Shaggy were going up the mountain versus... now it's a much nicer day. So they find the camp where the mayhem went loose, everyone got separated, and they find Pemba Sherpa crafted in one of the cages meant for the Yeti.
Yeah, he first thing he did once he heard there was a Yeti attack was he ran out straight into the lasers. And also his sister's missing. So they do a lot of... Velma does some sleuthing, starts giving you sort of the keys to the mystery, trying to figure it out. Giving you all the clues you need to figure out this mystery. Minga's captured. Presumably.
Then Del Chillman has to run some errands, I guess, on the mountain. So he leaves Scooby and Shaggy to run his radio program. That leaves them sort of broadcasting on the radio exactly where they are. The three, they pull up their radio. They're like, oh, this is Minga's radio. She must have left it behind. And they turn it on, and they hear Scooby and Shaggy. Where in the world could Scooby and Shaggy be? And, of course, they're running some stuff on the radio.
And it's great because it cuts over to Scooby and Shaggy on the radio, and the Yeti is outside the window. We get a crazy elaborate chase sequence.
Right, a second musical chase sequence.
Yeah, where the boxing scene Mac mentioned earlier takes place. He doesn't actually box the Yeti. He's just like gearing up to fight. They both got towels on their backs. Shaggy's like, you can do this, Scooby. You can do this. Come on.
Shaggy's the cut man, and Scooby's the prize fighter.
And he sends Scooby in. Scooby-Doo wimps out, but then Shaggy's like, give him the old backward spin-a-rooney or something.
Yeah, exactly. The Scooby-Doo special backward spin or something like that.
Champ, give him the old double backward super-duper Scooby spin.
Like that.
Yeah, and Scooby just kicks up a bunch of snow in his face, which is a highly illegal move.
Yeah, I don't think that would fly in a regulation boxing.
That's what they got Tyson for, just kicking snow at people. It's like, hey, stop that. That's bad behavior. No, you forgot the best part.
Yeah.
They go through an extremely elaborate chase sequence.
Sure.
It eventually leaves with the radio station destroyed, and they're up on a tower, like a radio tower, and the monster's coming at them. But then Scooby-Doo uncovers a balloon,
like a weather balloon.
Yeah, a weather balloon, and so they sail away on the balloon. And immediately after that, it cuts to the three.
Oh yes, it's sort of assumed that we've been listening to them on the radio the whole time.
Yeah, narrating everything, even though they didn't have microphones or anything.
That's how that cut reads, that they've been listening to the entire chase sequence happen, and they're like, I guess we should go help them or something.
For the second time, they've heard what appears to be the death of their friends. But no, I like to imagine in the Scooby-Doo universe that the music actually manifests as actual music that they're hearing, just nobody comments on it.
Okay.
If you run above a certain thing, they have a very low sound barrier. And you break that sound barrier, it starts playing the musical sounds.
I see.
And then you're in a little chase sequence.
This is where we sort of get into a lot of jumping around and characters in different spots. So I'm going to sort of speed us through that.
All right, now let's split up.
Now, wait a minute, hold up. How come every time some scurry shit happen that we need to stick together, you white people always say, let's split up?
Yeah.
She's right, we should stick together. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
The gang of Velma, Freddy, Daphne, and Pemba, they are standing at the old campsite, and they're like, okay, they just heard that on the radio. Scooby and Shaggy are on a balloon somewhere. So they're like, okay, let's split up. Velma and Freddy go to the radio station, and Daphne and Pemba go to quote-unquote the monster's cave, which I guess Pemba always knew about, to rescue Minga.
And it was actually like pretty funny because Fred's like, oh yeah, of course, me and Daphne will go check this out. And then Daphne's like,
oh, I'll go with Pemba. Go with Pemba? What does that mean?
You know, she just found a new Himalayan boy toy.
Yeah.
Gonna check out the wares.
And then Velma's just like, and I guess it's you and me, Freddy. And he's like, just got a real stupid look on his face.
I don't even know what they were going for.
I have no.
Honestly.
Yeah, we were watching this together, and we looked at each other and we said, I have no idea what that look means, but it must mean something.
It's something in the Scooby-Doo universe. Maybe it's reoccurred in the recent batch of movies. We don't know.
It's something where it's a question of how much does the average audience aware of the tropes of Scooby-Doo, and how much of this is winking at the audience. It's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they split up, and we cut to Scooby and Shaggy floating in a balloon, and they fall into a deep chasm. Velma and Freddy end up at the radio station. They run into Del, who came back
to see his livelihood in ruins.
Exactly. They find a clue there.
A clue!
There's a missing helium tank for the balloons, and also that they're like, okay, we got to find Scooby and Shaggy. Hop in Del's snowmobile.
His magic snowmobile.
Daphne and Pemba, they end up at the mouth of the cave, and they find an empty helium tank.
Kind of a boring thing. I mean, we've literally just seen this clue.
It's only interesting to the characters, not interesting to the audience.
No, it's a clue.
This is where they say, I don't think we're dealing with a regular snowman after all, while they're standing in this magical cave with various faces of monsters in the cave. It's it's sort of a very interesting clash of well, I don't think this monster is real, but we are in a very magical monster cave.
It's actually pretty good foreshadowing, being hey, this snowman's a fake, but maybe.
Then Scooby and Shaggy, so they fell off the balloon and they land in the mythical and previously mentioned Shangri-La.
Gone are the days when you dreamed of that car. You just want to sit in your Shangri-La.
Which the High Llama character can get to quickly, I guess.
Well, yeah, he can fly.
He does magically fly. And so he's sort of chilling there, and he's like, yeah, you can hang out as long as you want. You guys are cool.
Well, Shangri-La, you gotta mention, it's a city made out of gold, and there's jungle animals and monkeys and dense foliage everywhere.
Yeah, it's a very snow. Yeah, they portray Shangri-La as a very sort of typical hot area underneath the ice kind of thing. I don't quite understand how it works, but I guess it's inside of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And so it's very nice. There's monkeys, there's waterfalls, there's statues all made of gold, and then I guess Scooby and Shaggy decide to spend the night there. And then the next scene we see them in Shangri-La is them looking for the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at a bunch of tapestries and paintings and statues and all that.
And as they're going through this hallway, Shaggy is just mercilessly roasting every single one.
Yeah. It's wow, Shaggy, really is just not taking for granted all this magical wonder that you're in front of, and really just sort of going for his insult comic routine.
Yeah, Zoink Scoob, we uncovered the mystical secret kingdom. Look at that statue's bad hair.
Somebody paint this guy a hat.
I don't even know what Shaggy's doing here. I don't think he knows what he's doing. This is directly in front of the monster, who is posing as a tapestry. Not even
well. He just happens to be standing in a spot where a tapestry should be, but he's just hanging out, I guess.
Yeah, and Shaggy just keeps going with his routine, and he must realize this is the monster at this point, because he is just savagely ripping him to shreds. This is Rickles level destruction of an individual's self-esteem, and Scooby-Doo's freaking out about it.
I mean, with a face like that, he could go as himself for Halloween.
You know, we did forget one plot point because it's sort of, it's kind of easy to forget about this character because he sort of does disappear from the story for a while. During the second chase sequence at the radio station, LaFleur shows up.
Alphonse Lafleur, the world's greatest hunter.
Who was tracking the monster like all night to the radio station. And he sort of attempts to like kill the monster or otherwise capture it and then falls off the side of the mountain.
And disappears.
Like Scar dies at the end of Lion King style, like falling off a cliff.
Mm-hmm. Just boom, gone. And we just assume he's dead.
I mean, this is like as close to like this character is dead you can say in a Scooby-Doo film.
Mm-hmm. We just assume this was like the first on-screen death.
Yeah.
There have been deaths before in Scooby-Doo, like Zombie Island. A lot of people died, but it's never like on screen.
Yes, prior. But yeah, so he's dead. So anyway, back in Shangri-La, we get another chase sequence.
Sonic, it's the abominable snowman, and like, I don't think he appreciates my honesty.
Scooby-Doo and Shaggy sort of run around Shangri-La and end up in a mine cart. And that mine cart like takes them in an elevator down to a mine. We could probably come up with like a Scooby-Doo bingo card of like things to see in a film and see who wins on the bingo card.
Basically like Donkey Kong in one way, because you got to have the obligatory minecart level.
Yep, so minecart level, Hall of Mirrors, running in and out of doorways.
I was just going to say that one. Very large sandwiches with just an improbable assortment.
That's the free space, I'm fairly certain. I don't think you can I don't think you can have a Scooby-Doo property without a sandwich stacked more than 3 levels high.
I want to see Scooby-Doo where Scooby is forced to go gluten-free to a previously undiagnosed allergy.
Sure.
Yeah, so he's like making a giant sandwich like that, but he has to take the bread off and he eats it and looks at the camera and he's just like, it's just not the same.
It's pretty rough, Ray. So then they end up in this sort of mine area, and sort of there's these different like hallways. Shaggy, always the joke man, saying, "Man, this place has got a split personality." And
it's like, no, it doesn't, Shaggy. It has multiple tunnels, like you'd expect from a mine. This is an unremarkable fact.
We find out this is sort of where everyone starts converging on the same location. Daphne and Pemba find their way down the monster's cave to where Scooby and Shaggy are. Velma, Freddy, and Del Childman. The new three, they were monitoring seismic activity.
Yeah, and they were determining that some weird explosions were coming from down in the mine. So
they sort of
all groups converge into these split personality tunnels.
Exactly. Next thing they do is they just sort of go to the next room, I suppose, and they find this room full of giant crystals.
Yeah, we saw some crystals like this earlier in the movie. We've got to mention that
it wasn't really worth mentioning other than the fact that it was an obvious like clue, right? It's like it doesn't add anything to the plot until the fact that it comes up later.
Yeah, but the llama, he's got a secret room in his monastery with a giant carved statue of the Yeti holding a cool sparkly crystal in its hand, and he says, "You can't touch the crystal because that keeps the Yeti away."
I thought the Yeti statue in the monastery at the village looked cooler than the actual Yeti.
Oh, 100%. That statue was amazing.
Yeah.
The actual Yeti was just very, whatever.
I mean, one has to be animated, one doesn't, but still. Much cooler looking Yeti. This is where we sort of see that Professor Jeffries has been lighting off dynamite to mine these large crystals. And so we catch it having just blasted the last bit so to get a large crystal onto a sled. And they're like, "Professor Jeffries, of course." And so then they sort of use the element of surprise to trap Professor Jeffries in a classic Fred-style trap.
Come on, gang. I've got a plan to catch this crystal-craving creep.
And then they got him. It's like, "Of course you were the Yeti." And he's like, "What? Of course I wasn't the Yeti. I just used the hysteria around the Yeti to allow me to do my mining."
Yeah, to steal all these crystals, because everyone's going to be like, there's some explosions. Must be the Yeti.
Right, and then the Yeti shows up.
Uh-oh.
So they've captured Professor Jeffries, who is the de facto presumed Yeti at this point. But it turns out the Yeti's just there for some reason. Why is the Yeti running around going to the places it's going to?
Yeah,
right?
Why does he care? Like, Scooby and Shaggy have not done anything to annoy the Yeti or even, like, bother him too much. But the Yeti is determined to get Scooby and Shaggy for some reason. I guess because they just smell delicious to all monsters everywhere.
Their monster magnetivity at this point is sort of like, well, they just have a knack for running into people who disguise as monsters because it's sort of a mix, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a dual thing, you know. Monsters throughout history have always been attracted to goofballs and their dogs.
Okay.
And so if you want to do a really good monster impression, of course you're going to be chasing Scooby and Shaggy.
I see. Okay. That's the best way to impersonate a monster is to have Scooby and Shaggy be frightened by you.
Yeah, because it's so anti any actual goals that someone pretending to be a monster would want to be, you know? I mean, they're almost always real estate developers. It's not helping real estate to chase some nerd and his dog.
Or mining some precious materials.
Yeah.
I think that's the top two. I think people say it's always a greedy land developer, and that's probably true on most of the episodes. But I think for movies, it's usually somebody trying to mine a precious resource is more likely.
Or steal a treasure.
I think that's how they raise the stakes more for the movies is, well, land development's kind of boring. Like, sure, yeah, I guess the trainer is secretly a descendant of Genghis Khan, and he's gonna trick the tennis guy into not training well so that way he can steal back his family's historical mansion. Like, yes, that happens fairly often, but like that's not even that wrong is the thing.
All the time.
That happens fairly often.
Yeah, that's what killed my tennis career, actually.
Yeah.
These children of Kong.
But I think in the movies, we definitely see sort of a mining operation or otherwise salvage operation. Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders has that as the sort of the hidden...
Oh, yeah. They just wanted in the mine.
They wanted the gold.
But this time... the Abominable Snowman's there. It's not the guy stealing stuff the mine.
He just got incredibly lucky.
Yeah. I mean, that was a pretty good red herring, actually, because...
turned to me and said, I'm pretty sure it's Professor Jeffries, and it wasn't.
I said that in the first couple.
Even still, they did a good job of distracting even kids, I'm sure. They'd be like, what? Professor Jeffries wasn't the guy?
Yeah.
I thought I knew for sure. So they get in a minecart chase, which was sort of foreshadowed, Chekhov's minecart. And so, there's a lot of switching back and forth and sort of,
multi-track
drifting, just general insanity.
My favorite part about like mines and Scooby-Doo and Donkey Kong and stuff is how impractical they would be for transporting minerals out of the mines. There was like mini roller coasters.
Everything's a roller coaster. Yeah. Like there's no way that you could actually have enough like potential energy to go up a lot of these. Like there's no track that brings it up to the top and then lets everything go. So it's like they're always going up, but they didn't start that high, so there's no way that works.
Yeah. and like 5 or 6 tracks going in the same direction.
Right, they're all going in the same exact direction, and they've got very high scaffolding,
Oh yeah, that massive scaffolding. It's like, how did they even build this, and how would anyone get it across there?
Right, and for what reason, right? Why 2 tracks?
It's great, though. I love this. It was a very good chase because it was Professor Jeffries' escape, so it's a 2 antagonist chase.
Yeah, it's a really great final chase.
Yeah, the monster's trying to get them. They're trying to keep the crystal pushing forward, and Jeffries is trying to get the crystal, swinging at him with a pickaxe.
Yeah.
Very good.
Jeffries in that pickaxe is like really, he really leans into I am a Scooby-Doo villain at this point.
Oh yeah, just full bore villain. Oh, and I love how he escaped from the trap he was just in, with just like a pocket knife.
He just had a pocket knife. He's just a resourceful person.
Yeah. Jeffries is great.
So there's basically that chase scene sort of transitions into a second chase scene in which there is an avalanche, and so Scooby and Shaggy sort of make makeshift snowboards, and you get the fun sort of extreme sports, which was very popular in 2007.
Oh yeah, so
the X Games style.
So what exactly did they do? They took like a ski and broke it in half.
Well,
right?
so they were on one of Jeffrey's sleds. There was 2 Jeffrey's sleds, right? So they end up crashing after an explosion, and so the sled tracks are still there. So they makeshift the sleds into a snowboard.
Yeah, it was great. They each have a separate snowboard and are just doing all these mad sick tricks snowboarding down.
Right, they have no idea how to stop when snowboarding, which is sort of the first thing you learn when you do snowboarding.
Yeah, but they got all the skills. I mean, they're going down in front of an avalanche behind them with a monster too, and they're just doing all these sick flips and stuff and jumping over, conveniently placed ramps. Once they hit the village, they even start like grinding on the rooftops.
Yeah, I mean, like at this point, I'm sort of like, okay, let's wrap it up. Let's get to the final conclusion, figure out who the Yeti is. But
it's a pretty good chase.
It's definitely like I was sort of the little kid in me was like, okay, well, this is a very fun chase, and I know I would be like super excited that the chase isn't over at this point. point if I was watching as a kid. And plus, gotta get those extra 10 minutes. I mean, they were at the 75-minute mark, which is the minimum for like a TV for a movie, but they went the full 90, which I appreciate.
Give them credit for it.
If I was sitting a kid in front of this, I'd be like, all right, good. It's that way we only have to loop it 3 times as opposed to 4.
Yeah. So refresh my memory. The big thing is Scooby and Shaggy, doing these sick tricks down the mountain. And how did?
So I guess everybody who's not the Professor, the Yeti, and Scooby and Shaggy, they all end up in the village a lot sooner than the avalanche starts. And they basically figure, okay, we're expecting an avalanche, I guess they are. So they sort of set up a trap to catch both Jeffries and the Yeti. And so they're just they set up some ramps and some various different nets and whatnot that they assume the path that they'll be taking. So at this point, the Yeti and Jeffries are sort of dueling it out for the crystal, I guess is sort of their state of being. So they get down, Scooby and Shaggy get there first, set off the trap accidentally. It doesn't really matter. They just catch Jeffries and technicality somewhere else. And then the avalanche catches Del Chillman and Velma and Del Chillman's snowplow machine, and they're caught in the avalanche. And then the Yeti comes to rescue them, and then sort of like super inflates.
Yeah, it sticks its thumb in its mouth. And its body just balloons out like a levitating grape.
The bum who holds the most grapes wins this gold ball.
And it's able to jump with both of them in its arms away from the snowmobile, away from the avalanche, and then they crash in like a snowdrift.
That's
but
right.
They're safe.
Like, wow, this is some kind of snowman. And then Velma's like, more like snow woman.
That's no snowman. Try snow woman.
Turns out that Minga was the Yeti the whole time.
Minga!
Yeah, she'd been using helium to make her able to...
And a robotic endoskeleton.
It was really impressive. This girl has like a future, and she was able to cobble that together from like junk lying around in like a Himalayan
She
monastery.
must have taken an engineering correspondence course while living up in here, because as every pretty much villain in Scooby-Doo ends up having a very advanced engineering background.
Yeah, and a background in special effects. I mean, that was a pretty believable costume.
Yeah, so she was using, basically she had a very heavy thing, and she had helium in the suit to sort of make it able to walk around and also climb up tall like cliff faces and whatnot. It still doesn't quite establish why she was running around all the various spots on the mountain she did. But they sort of hand wave that sort of questioning by Alphonse showing back up because he's alive.
Alphonse Lafleur, the world's greatest hunter.
And he was unconscious, but conscious enough to notice that he was being rescued by something. And that something must be the Yeti.
The Lord Jesus Christ.
So then we get into the epilogue. They all decide to go on vacation into...
Oh, well, you forgot to say Minga's motivation. Yeah, she has a huge crush on Chillman and knew he was going to leave if he didn't find a Yeti soon.
Right.
And so she was just making that so he would stay forever and she could listen to his radio station.
That's right. But then they just decide, well, we're independently wealthy, so why don't we just take both of you on vacation to Paris with us?
Yeah, so they all go back to Paris, and Chillman and Minga are just like being all lovey-dovey. It's kind of weird.
It's a little weird. It doesn't seem like it's a relationship that's gonna last.
Yeah, it all seemed infatuation. I mean, she literally had no exposure to the outside world in her little monastery except for him.
It's got that sort of...
And he looked a lot older than her.
There's
like
definitely
30.
an age difference there for sure.
I'd say he was like 31 or 2. And
Minga's like at most 21, right?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'd say
right. 19, yeah.
Yeah. But, hey, they seem happy for the time being.
Ah, ma chérie amour. Ma petite baguette, no?
Oh, I am loving the Paris.
And, Scooby and Shaggy are saying like, well, it's the city of lovers and I'm loving this food.
Yes, that's one of my favorites.
They say Paris is for lovers, right, Scoob? Well, I'm in love with this springtime spread.
Oui, oui,
Shaggy.
And everyone's happy and lovey-dovey in Paris until they get a call. Who's it from?
It's from Freddy, and he accidentally went to the Amazon somehow.
I think I got on the wrong plane.
What plane? You drive your car everywhere. The van's in Paris. How did you not get in Paris?
Yeah, none of them noticed that once they got off the plane, or they didn't notice through like the several-hour flight that Freddy wasn't there, and they didn't notice in the airport. They didn't notice going to the same restaurant they started off at. These are very unobservant friends.
I have to imagine they must have a relative who is in the airline industry, and they must all fly standby, because this is otherwise like their flight schedules don't make any sense.
Oh yeah, totally.
But yeah, so then everyone gets in the van, and like, I could get used to this, says Minga.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I know we talked a little bit about how much we liked the film at the beginning, but what were your thoughts overall, Van?
I was very like whatever for the most part, but just talking about it made me realize how much I love those final two chase sequences. So like overall plot, overall characters, I'm kind of like, yeah, this is bog standard, but those chase sequences at the end were really good.
So I'm going to rate this on a couple different metrics, and I think this will be a useful sort of way to score a Scooby-Doo film. So the three metrics I'm gonna rate this on are chase sequences, mystery, and supernatural element.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So I think the chase sequence, I think this is probably high-end chase sequences. Like, I think probably the chase sequences are a little bit like better choreographed and better like set up. I mean, not realistic necessarily, but fun to watch. No, but that's not really why. That's not like the value of the chase sequence, but like how fun. If you just watch chase sequences one after another and didn't worry about the plot, how fun would this be? I'd say probably higher than some other Scooby-Doo films. Like,
definitely.
Ones I can think off the top of my head, like there's the chase sequences in, for example, Zombie Island aren't that good. It's not what the movie's about.
Yeah, it's not a chase sequence film because there's not enough props and stuff.
Right, not a lot of no good the set pieces weren't like as good in that, which is fine because like the realism element kind of plays it more into that film. Yeah. So, but this one's like they forego some of the realism.
Yeah.
I'm using air quotes, but
pseudo verisimilitude.
Exactly, but for more interesting, more engaging chase sequences. The mystery, I would say, is not the best, but but the twist element to it, I think, probably knocks it above like the bottom of the barrel as far as mysteries go.
Yeah, I mean the twist was just like a mediocre episode. It almost felt like the plot with the mystery came from like a 15-minute short because there was significantly less mystery than you get on like a lot of episodes.
They really don't even like interrogate the mystery until halfway through the film.
Yeah.
And there's like, it's just like every scene Velma's in is purely just to facilitate getting to the mystery at the end.
Yeah, Velma didn't have a lot to do, and there was really just one clue. That was it. It was the helium.
It was helium. Yeah, it's helium and footprints. Yep.
Usually there's 2 or 3 clues that they put together. Like, why would a monster need plane tickets and snowshoes? There's 2 things, and this is just, it's helium twice.
Well, I guess the seismic activity is also a clue, but that's a red herring.
Yeah, I did like the red herring plot.
Right, so that's why I think the red herring element to it sort of knocks it up a little bit, but even still, it's pretty basic.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, it goes up a little bit and then goes down because the Minga type thing, because it's just so, you don't suspect her just because it's too dumb.
It is too dumb. Like, it doesn't make any sense why this character would be able to make a fake monster suit.
Yeah, she only avoids suspicion by just, the sheer idea of being
right.
stupid.
Yeah, they set up her motivation fairly explicitly, but you could just say like, oh, this character's just gonna, this is for our returning character Del Chillman to have a love interest, right? Like that's all they wanted to do in this episode.
I really hope he doesn't show up again. He didn't add anything.
He did not add anything. I think they probably like got halfway through the film and thought, oh, we should throw Del Chillman in this. I don't think it was like we need another movie that features Del Chillman.
Everyone's favorite Del Chillman?
No. So I'd give the mystery like a like if on a 4 out of 5 on a 5 point scale, I'd say this is like a 2 or maybe
it's a 2.
It's a 2. It's not a 1. It's not the worst.
Yeah.
I put the chase sequences probably at a 4 just so I give room to go up.
I'd say a 4. I would say like
the supernatural elements. I think that's probably as low as I can go because they attempted a supernatural element in Shangri-La. It's not well talked about or used in any great degree. I mean, it could have just been a diamond mine, and that would have fulfilled the exact same purpose as Shangri-La.
Well, the supernatural stuff is just sheer like set dressing. It's all in the background. Like there's the snowman, that saved the Frenchman's life.
Right.
And there's Shangri-La. Those have really no effect on the plot.
Absolutely zero impact on the plot at all.
It's just like, the spooky background. It's the same effect that like a spooky house would have. It's just sort of there.
Right. But it's not just using the legends. Like the legends are true, but they're not important to what's going on in this story.
They do not matter to the plot.
So I would give that definitely a 1 out of 5 if I'm putting it on that point scale. So great for chase sequences. And I guess if in general I don't want to grade the humor, but I'd say I laughed a couple times. Not the funniest film I've seen. I think a lot of the puns and stuff probably work if you have a basic understanding of English language. So
yeah, Shaggy's constant barb defense mechanism, Master Roaster.
I think it's the most successful. The actual situation's funny, and that's usually pretty good with like Velma and Daphne and all that when it's happening. Like in the beginning, like there's some good like just cutbacks to them. So some of the editing has some good humor to it, but I don't think anything else was like super funny as far as what this show is supposed to be. I think that's going to about do it for us this week on the Doolette. Don't forget to join us next time when we do it all again. So Van, I want you to spin the Doolette.
Spinning right now. Scooby-Doo behind the scenes 8 shorts.
That's going to be a redo right there.
A redo. We get one redo forever.